Welcome to the Drawing Board. I'm your host and in-house artist, Erin Leffler. If you're not familiar with the Drawing Board, here's a quick recap of what happens on the show. Every episode of the Drawing Board, I invite a guest from the comics and entertainment industry, and we learn a little bit more about what they do. Now, while we're learning about what they do, I'm also drawing them. Pretty fun, right? Well, I am super excited to introduce y'all to my guest this week because if you saw Timmy Failure, Mistakes Were Made on Disney Plus or My Spy, you're going to be very familiar with my guest. She's an actress and is upcoming in the next Avatar film, which is really exciting because that was one of the biggest films in the world when it came out. Please welcome my guest, Chloe Coleman. Hi, Chloe.
It's so nice to meet you.
It's so nice to meet you too. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So, for people at home who may not know, because it is a bit of a broad term, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, sure. So, actually, since I'm very young, I started out acting when I was about 6 or 5 years old, and my parents had been in the industry before me, so I would be on set with them a lot and get to see what they did. And, I'd come, and I just enjoyed it so much, seeing all these people work together to make a production and do something together. I love the aspect of teamwork and, creating something in storytelling. I've always loved books and that kind of stuff. And so I started acting when I was very young, and everything just started to go from there. And I started getting to do projects and meeting people. And one of the biggest first things that I did was Big Little Lies, which was a TV show when I was younger. And that's when I started realizing how much I enjoyed it and that I really wanted to be an actress, for the rest of my life. Because I love meeting new people and just playing all these different characters and having these experiences that you just don't see every day in life. And it's so fun to get into the character and, get into their emotions. So I've been very grateful to work with a lot of amazing actors and actresses. And, we're here now, and I'm very excited. So being an actor, I love voice acting. We do a lot of voiceover sometimes, which is very fun. So it's a big genre of things.
So this is a question I love getting to talk about because a lot of times when I guest at Comic-Cons, I have a lot of kids coming up to me and they have the same question because it's made to seem through social media and entertainment that the only way that they can be good at something is to only do their job 24/7 and nothing else. So this is where we get to talk about hobbies and how important they are to being good at our job. So for you, do you have any hobbies that you enjoy doing?
I'm a huge multitasker. I think one of the things that I've done, since I've started acting is building up multiple aesthetics and things that I like to do. So as you can see behind me in my room, there's a lot of different things. I have colored pencils. I love to draw, write. I love to game. There's a lot of things, but I think that all builds up to who I am because I like to have a lot of aspects and quirks to me. When I was younger, I still do play the piano and the ukulele. I've always loved music and singing, and Broadway is actually one of my favorite things. I've always wanted to go there and be able to do it. And we went to New York when we were filming Marry Me, and we got to see 2 Broadway productions and 1 off-Broadway production. And the one that I saw Mean Girls and Hamilton. And Hamilton's my favorite musical. I love it. We listen to the songs all the time. And I just, saw all the actors and how much fun they're having. Because I also love live acting and live stuff and being in the moment and telling stories. So, seeing that is something that I just loved. And art, like you're doing now, I love art so much, really. Especially anime. I watch a lot of anime. And what I get from those references, I like to sometimes, when I'm doing my art, is I have some pictures of characters up here. And sometimes when I'm doing art, I use that as references for hands or anything. So I like to use references a lot when I do art or use whatever I can. So that's fun. I mean, there's a lot of hobbies. I've also been very athletic. I love action and sports. So when we filmed Gunpowder Milkshake, that's a big action movie. And, there was a lot of stunts that we got to do. And I was very excited about that and happy. So I used to be on 2 swim teams. And I did all my strokes, and competitions were very fun. But I pretty much, there's a lot of my room. I know you don't see the other half, but I have a shelf, and each shelf I have this one shelf that's dedicated to all the stuff that I've done in movies So I have from
Oh,
places I've
wow.
visited too. So one of the traditions we have is getting snow globes from anywhere we go. So I have some snow globes up over on my shelf over there.
Well, that's fun. And you know what? The whole thing about having the photos up on your wall for references, you're on the great path for artists because we do that all the time. Actually, around my desk, I have a lot of photos too that I have that I look at if I need help or inspiration from something. So you're doing good.
Thank you.
So, this is something I love talking about because a lot of times in the acting industry, especially, there is a high spirit of competition for jobs to be popular online. That can be a hard thing sometimes. Do you find that competition should be everything in order to be good at your job? Or do you think that there's a healthy balance where you can also make friends with other people who do the same job as you?
It's exactly making friends. I starting from when I first started acting. Friends have and families on a set have been the main goal for me because I loved to always just treat everybody that you meet with kindness and respect and always remember them and give them your attention and talk with them because later on there's probably going to be a chance where you see them again or get to work with them and
Oh, yeah.
especially our directors and fellow castmates getting to work with them in the future. It's nice to have a good impression at first and be able to become their friends and, just affection and create a family with the rest of the cast and crew. Like, there's people I remember to this day that were sound people or camera workers who I just love. And, like, I always want to reach out to people. And so I have, I like to talk to people I've worked with online. And there's kids that I've worked with actually on Big Little Lies. Me and my friend Ian, who worked on that, we talk like all the time and we just hang out and we listen to Russian music together and we tell stories and we mess around with the controls on Zoom. And right now it's nice to be able to talk to people and be able to see people, especially with the pandemic we're going through. But I've always been about having friends. I don't really see competition, just a peer that I can get to work with and get to know in the future.
I love that. It's so good to hear that you think that because I feel like that's a very important thing that we kind of forget nowadays. Everyone thinks that you have to be pit against everyone else, but in reality, you can actually learn a lot more by making friends with people in the industry for sure.
It's
Now,
true.
hand in hand with that, I love talking about rejection as well because that's kind of in the same vein as that. Rejection can be a little hard because as humans, we are very, very sensitive things. We take everything personal. Do you think that kids should be taking rejection personally like it's their fault, or can they use that as a learning experience?
I think that um, rejection should never take it personally because you know there's always going to be so many chances in your life and some of them you're going to miss and that's okay. Like, mistakes are something that you learn from, and actually I'm sometimes even inspired by my mistakes. It's what keeps me going, letting me know that there's always going to be a time to do better, and it powers me forward. So that I just want to. So I feel like sometimes when kids blame themselves for not being able to do something or being rejected by something, they shouldn't take it to heart because it's not really your fault. I mean, everybody's different, and that's the good thing. There's so much variety in the industry, and sometimes there's going to be roles that fit you perfectly, and then sometimes people just might not see you the same, and that's okay. You don't need to take that to heart, and I felt that way before, and I know in my heart that it's okay, and you don't have to worry about it.
That is a very good outlook on that. And I think that's a really good way for kids to think about it because a lot of times we tend to take things personally, but a lot of times we can learn the best lessons and actually improve a lot from rejection. So that's a really good way to look at it.
Thank you.
So now, not so serious of a question, but this is something I love talking about because a lot of times people think, like, even at a young age, that once you've gotten to a certain point, you can't do anything else, that's it, your career is plateaued. But as artists, we all still have dreams that we want to do and we want to work on. Is there anything that you haven't tried yet or anyone that you haven't worked with yet that you'd like to?
There's a ton of people. Um, the reason that I actually got into acting is because I like my goal, and I was at 5 at this time, and I remember saying something like, "I want to work with Julie Andrews, and that is why I want to start acting." And that was one of the reasons because growing up, I lived off the movie Sound of Music, And I've always loved singing, and dancing is another one of my hobbies. I love ballet and everything. So musicals I've always been into, and so seeing like Julie Andrews, I always wanted to go and be on a movie like that and meet her. And I would literally cry if I ever met her or got to work with her. And there's also people from older movies like Marilyn Monroe, which she sadly passed away. I wouldn't be able to work with her, but I would love to work with people like Jack Lemmon, or I don't know if you know the movie Some Like It Hot, but that cast was just amazing, and I loved it so much.
Yeah.
Or What's Up, Doc? I also loved that movie.
Man, those are all really great people, and especially Julie Andrews. Julie Andrews is a national treasure. I do not blame you at all. I grew up watching almost every movie with Julie Andrews because my grandma loved Julie Andrews, so definitely a good one for sure. So this is something that I love talking about because this is something, while Hollywood has made really great strides, it still has a long way to go, which is diversity and inclusion. There's still a long way to go in that. How important was it for you that you were able to see people who looked, sound, and came from the same places that you did on screen?
I think, to be honest, diversity in the industry is something that I'm always open to, and I'm a mixed kid myself, and I like to meet people from different walks of life, and it's so interesting to meet them and learn about them because I always love different cultures, and I think it's just beautiful how everybody has a different way of a lifestyle that grew up, and I just want to try it sometimes. And when we went to Europe was when I just fell in love with Europe. Like, we went to Paris and Prague and Berlin. And I was even thinking of learning German. Like, me and my mom would walk around with my sister and we'd see signs and we tried to sound them out and stuff like that. And when we filmed, a lot of the cast was from all over the world. Like, one of our ADs was from Israel. Another was from somewhere else. But, it's nice to see people from all different places in the world and just meet them and be able to learn a lot more about them. And that's what I like, diversity in the industry. It just makes the movie interesting and, have interest in the cast and people you meet.
For sure. I think that's a really good way of putting it, because if we get stuck in the same bubble, it's not interesting anymore. Seeing people from all over the world is always such a fun thing because you learn so much about different cultures that way. Now, this is something that I think is one of my favorite things to talk about, because while you haven't had as long of a career as some of my other guests have, you have had a really fun career. Are there any moments from your career so far that you can think of that was like one of your favorite memories?
I remember also another thing since I've been little is that I've loved traveling the world, and travel is like something super important to me. My favorite things are planes. I love to go out places and visit different countries. When we went to Europe, I felt like really proud in that I'd gone somewhere off our continent, which made a big difference to me, to think that we took 9 hours to fly over an ocean. And it was also nerve-wracking but exciting at the same time. And that's why one of the things I love about acting is it can take you anywhere. And when we were in Berlin, New York, Toronto, Canada was also an amazing place, but New York, I have a really big memory. I still love dance to this day, and I always love to work out and do recitals and ballet like that. And me and my friends used to talk about going to a certain college called Juilliard for their dance course. And I know it's a very, very hard school to get into, but walking around New York too, it's such a nice place to be. In LA, we don't walk around as much as we got to in New York. We would take hour walks and walk down to get bubble tea at our favorite place, and walk. And we'd take the metro station, which was a big first because we got to map that out, and it was super fun actually. But in New York, we were going to meet a friend for dinner. And I didn't notice it at first, but we were waiting for them right in front of Juilliard, and I didn't even notice. And I was kind of sitting there and looking at the building, and I couldn't really see what it was. And it's something about it was telling me, wow, this is like a big building. I wonder what it's used for. So we walked around one of the sides, and I saw a sign that says Juilliard, and my mouth kind of dropped, and I was like, wait. This is Juilliard. And I know I'm only in 6th grade. There's no need to worry about college. But I was just, so amazed because, the American Ballet Company, there's like, I read actually Misty Copeland. I read one of her, I think her diaries or a book that she wrote about her life. And she was in New York and was becoming a dancer. And I felt like almost even special just to be able to be there and walk in that area. But seeing Juilliard, I saw at a certain point, another corner we walked around, and there was dancers in the window, and I watched them while we were waiting for our friend to come, and I just watched them forever, and it was so cool. But traveling and going places like Berlin was also, there's a lot you can learn, a lot of history that we learned from there. We learned about the wall, we learned about a concentration camp, we went there, and there was just a lot of that we learned about. And we got to go to the Eiffel Tower, which I never thought I would go there. I thought I'd be like 20 by that time. And my sister, I remember how happy that she was, because she'd always talked about going to Paris, and we were there at the top. And it just felt, so magical being in different places aside from LA, and seeing other places in the world is one of my favorite things.
That's amazing. And as a New Yorker herself, I can totally understand that, because anytime I have passed Juilliard, that school has blown my mind. It's such a big building too, so it's kind of hard not to look and see and be like, ah! It's definitely a very interesting city, though. I will say, anytime riding on the subway or the trains, even though I've done it ever since I was a kid, I'm always fascinated because I'm like looking out the window like, all right, what am I going to see this time? Now, we all learn lessons sometimes, whether in a good way or a bad way, and it can be a little challenging at times. Is there any lessons that you've learned that you feel would make it easier for other kids out there just starting out?
Yeah, one of the things that I love to do is, get to meet the person that I'm acting with a little bit ahead of time and just get comfortable with them and get to know their character too. It's good to know, aside from your character, other people's characters, so you can have things in the scene. And coming with choices to the set is always a good thing. Don't be afraid to be prepared, but you don't also want to over prepare that you have things read out in a certain way, and then you're not able to change it into something, fresh and in the moment. So I like to come with choices and, read the script ahead of time and go over the scene with somebody. It's always nice to do that. And there's actually a lot of ways that people like to go over that. Sometimes people will read opposite lines or write down their lines. And there's so many good ways to do it, really, whatever's comfortable with you. But, also never be afraid to bring anything to the scene or be in the moment or improv. It's always awesome because sometimes you end up using those things and it's awesome. Some of like the greatest movies have amazing scenes that weren't scripted, and it's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I'm thinking there's a couple lines, because I know a lot of people are into the Marvel movies nowadays. A
Yes.
lot of the lines that people know from those movies that are iconic were all just improv on the spot. So improv can usually come up with the best stuff for sure. Now, I know that you're working on Avatar 2 because that was a big headline when it came out. Are there any other projects that you're working on now that you're really excited about that you can talk about?
Yes, there is. There's Marry Me, which we filmed all the way in New York, and we saw Statue of Liberty there. That was amazing. But we filmed that with Jennifer Lopez, Owen Wilson, Sarah Silverman, John Bradley West. There was a lot of kids on the cast that we got to hang out with who were awesome too. So it was great to film there. But it's actually going to be coming out in 2021 on Valentine's Day. So I'm very excited. It was so fun to film. I mean, the crew itself was just amazing. I remember the first day that we walked into the office there in New York, and I met the director, and I was of course a little bit nervous, but she was so kind. I mean, Kat Corio, she's a big person on single-use plastic, so it really, meeting her changed my perspective on how we use plastic every day and how it, goes into the ocean and earth. So I have my water bottle back there, which I take with me everywhere. So,
Hey, I'm right there with you. I have a reusable cup all the time. It's awesome. That's actually a really great thing too, because we walk away sometimes learning stuff from people we wouldn't expect it from either.
Yeah.
But that's really cool. I can't wait for that to come out, because I know that I always enjoy. I'm a movie buff, so I enjoy when new movies come out, and I'm sure that the other people watching this are going to enjoy it as well.
There's also Gunpowder Milkshake that's coming out. That was also extraordinary to film. Berlin was life-changing. I loved it there. But it's a great action-packed movie. The script is incredible, and I'm very excited for that. I have this photo with the director Navot Papuchado, and it was from when we filmed. And
that's so cool.
Yeah, but it has an amazing cast and a lot of female power in it. It has Karen Gillan, Lena Headey, many more. But that one's going to be great too.
That sounds like that is going to be a blast. And I know I have a lot of girls that watch this show, so I'm sure that they're going to enjoy that as well. Especially Karen Gillan is one of my favorite actresses, so I'm really excited to see that as well.
Yeah, Gunpowder Milkshake, the rest of the cast, we have Michelle Yeoh, Carlo Gugino, sorry, I'm forgetting, Angela Bassett and more. There's a lot, it's really great, and it's about the 3 generations of assassins, and really, like, some of the scenery and sets are super cool, and it's just a really cute film. I think a lot of people are going to enjoy it.
Well, that sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait for that and the other film to come out. I'm sure that the people watching this are going to enjoy them as well. Now, a couple more questions for you before I'm able to show you what I was doing over here. Because I think this is such a cool thing, because you've done a lot of different forms of acting and a lot of different roles. Are there any roles in particular that you find that you enjoy playing?
I've actually enjoyed all my roles so much, getting into the character, and actually I sometimes even take characters that I've worked with and put them into my auditions, take a bit of their emotion and channel it into characters. So, I love always having them in the back of my head and, just getting to be a different person. I mean, so some of the things that, like, my characters do, I could never do in real life, which is another reason why I love acting, is especially stories like action and Marvel movies are just, like, incredible to me, and I love them so much. Fantasy and stunts and green screen and effects. Actually, one of my biggest hobbies is I love editing and stop motion, like art stop motion. I don't know if you've heard of the app Flip-A-Clip, but sometimes I just hang out there and I'll draw little things and try to animate them. It's really cool and fun. I've tried to get a bit into 3D modeling on Blender on my computer back there, but that was like really hard because I actually self-teach myself, or just look up tutorials. Wow. So I just kind of wing it, and I don't really know exactly what I'm doing, but I do my best with it.
Hey, you know what? I can never knock self-teaching. I started out doing the same thing. I tried going to art school, but turns out my professor stressed me out too much, so I ended up still self-teaching. So there's plenty of good things that can come from self-teaching yourself. So you're doing really good. Really good. Now, last question for you. My favorite question I get to talk about, because I feel like it sums up the entire episode. If there's a kid out there, or a young adult, or even an adult who's learning this stuff later on in their life and they want to get into it, what is the one thing that you should have them walking away from this episode learning?
I think what I want people to know is just to go after, what you want and chase your dreams. I feel like people coming into the industry get nervous and think to themselves that they can't do it, but, you can do it. And sometimes it can get stressful. People kind of assume certain ways on how things work, that if you get acting, you won't be able to do anything else. But there's so many amazing actors that have so many other talents. And it's just, being yourself when it comes to acting, because I love meeting unique people and being an individual. And sometimes I feel like people think it's better when they're like everybody else, but I don't want people to think that. So I just love, meeting people, like making friends. For me, I love having different kind of friends because I'm always open to anybody. So I never want somebody to think that they're not, good enough, because that's what I notice in some kids nowadays in our generation. Gen Z can sometimes just have problems about what they think of themselves or comparing to others. And it's, sometimes it's not good to do that, or thinking that, oh, my work isn't good enough, but it always will be, because you have your own style, and that's what makes you cool.
For sure, and I think that's a great lesson for people to walk away with. I haven't had anybody say that as a lesson yet, so thank you so much for that. I am so excited for everybody who just got to hear that, because they're going to walk away with such good information now. So now comes my favorite part of the show where I'm able to show you what I was able to make of you over here. I'm going to warn you ahead of time, though, that the lights sometimes do mess with the computer colors, so I will send you an actual copy of this so you can see it, but I'm going to try to get it up in here to the best of my ability. Oh, that light is messing with it.
I'm gonna cry. That is amazing. That is the best thing I've ever seen. Oh my gosh. Literally, you got my hair just perfect. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all that awesome information with us. I learned a lot. I hope that everybody who tuned in learned so much from this. And thank you again to everyone who tuned in. Again, I am your host and in-house artist, Erin Leffler. Catch you next time on the drawing board.